Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our third town hall of the legislative session. My name is Michelle Mortensen. I am the Assembly Republican Caucus Communications Director, and every single week we are bringing you these town halls live on a media platform, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so much more, so that you can talk directly with members of the caucus and find out what is happening during the legislative session. And we are already completed with our very first month of the legislative session. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions because a lot has happened in regards to Medicaid and Medicare, as of regards to business, law enforcement, public safety, and so much more. So now let's welcome our very own Assemblyman Gregory Hafen. Of course, he is the minority leader and the leader of the Assembly Republican Caucus. And Gregory, is we are seeing his hand, but hey, there we go. We've got him here with us today. Gregory, how are you doing this evening?
Good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's been another long, fun, eventful week. We heard President Trump yesterday. He had some really good things to say, and I think the country's headed in the right direction. And then I have some good news for all of you. I'm sure a lot of you know I have a couple of election integrity bills. And one of them, I have been told I will be getting a hearing on March 11th. Um, it is Assembly Bill 148. And what this would do, if it passes, would shorten the window that the mail ballots could be sent out. And it would simply say that the sample ballot has to come out before the mail ballot. Where I live in Nye County, my clerk was super efficient. She got her mail ballots out and it was in my mailbox in September. However, we didn't get our sample ballot until right before early voting started. And so there was a lot of confusion. And there was a lot of other counties that had the same exact confusion because their actual ballots went out before the sample ballots came out. And so we want to ensure everybody gets their sample ballot first, and then their actual mail ballot. So that'll be March 11th. I know we'll have a lot of support there, but if you want to log in and testify and support, go on to our legislative website, and you can log in from there to join in and voice your support.
Absolutely. And it's important that people who do want election integrity go to these hearings and support these bills because, as I know, a lot of people are like, oh, we want so much more when it comes to election integrity. We want voter ID. We want all votes in by election day. But at the end of the day, what we've done, the strategy this time around, is we have these very specific bills on voter integrity that we are hoping are getting hearings and hoping that we will get passed so that overall we get all of it. Isn't that correct? Rather than doing one big bill that addressed all these things, we have these very specific bills so we can get the voter integrity that everyone is so in desire for. And so we want to make sure that no matter what your big issue is, voter ID, election day voting, sample ballots come out before regular ballots, you're there to testify and support so that we get these passed.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. And what I like to say is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Um, this is just a very small bite of the elephant right now. Uh, Assemblyman Gray actually has the counter tail end of this bill in his language, which would say mail ballots have to be received by election day. So my bill starts on the front end, putting the limitations on how soon those can go out, and Assemblyman Gray's comes on the back end to really close that window so we don't have months of the election going on, but we really are trying to limit it down to so we really have the results on election day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I also want to remind everyone, as people are slowly but surely coming in, that if you have questions that you would like to specifically ask Leader Hafen, all you have to do is ask it in the chat. I know Chelsea just showed up. She said the party is here, and she mentioned earlier this week that she always tries to make it to this and then forgets. I was gonna have you text her. Totally forgot about that. But she is here. So if any of you who are watching right now, we've got people all over on Instagram. We've got them on our various Facebook pages and so much more. If anyone would like to ask a question, now is the time to do it. But I also want to bring up business issues because so far this session, in the early days of the session, we weren't talking about bills that were affecting the business industry too much. But right now it's starting to get hot and heavy because the Attorney General has a bill that could be quite devastating to a variety of types of businesses here in the state. That's AB 44. And the governor has some bills that could dramatically change business in this state, saving us up to $20 million. So there is a lot of big news when it comes to big and small business in Nevada. Why don't you give us an update on that, Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So business is obviously very important to the state of Nevada. We have been known as very pro-state, and now with some of the things that are going on in Delaware, Nevada is looking more and more business friendly every single day. Um, Attorney General Ford's bill, though, frankly, it's just a bad piece of legislation. He wants to do price fixing. His claim is to prevent price gouging under crisis. However, that this bill goes way farther than that. This bill would say that, during the pandemic when car prices had massive markups, that's where we should set the price and that's where they need to stay. Well, we know that the price of cars have come down in the last few years because the supply is kicked up. And so if you set the bar and say, this is going to be the price, period, it doesn't allow for the market to adjust when the supply catches up with the demand, which is what we're seeing in the car market. The same thing can be said with the television prices. Television prices have come down substantially in the last few years. And so to me, it was an unnecessary piece of legislation. It was a very long hearing that we really didn't need to sit through. And then Michelle mentioned the good thing that the governor's office is doing. The Office of Business and Industry just had a great meeting with them today on their bill that is very Doge-like. They're looking at cutting a number of boards and commissions, merging them together to make them more efficient. The latest amendment appears to um, take 20 of the boards and merge them down into 7 boards. The projection is that it will take roughly $20 million in savings just by doing this. So we're going to take 20 boards, we're going to merge them together. We're not going to eliminate services to the state, but just by consolidating those, we will save the state approximately $20 million, which is huge. And the other part of that is that we're looking at other things like reciprocity across state lines. So you can come with your license from another state and get to work immediately instead of having to wait months and months to get licensed. And so really trying to streamline the process for a number of different professions, as well as consolidate the boards, really make it more of a one-stop shop. And so super excited for that. On that note, I actually presented a bill today, Assembly Bill 270, on behalf of the Engineer Board to try to reduce some of the regulatory burden and licensing burden that currently takes place with the Engineers and Surveyors Board, modernize some of the language. Interesting enough, the Engineer Board was first created in 1919. So over 100 years ago. Clearly, we have a lot more technology in our world. We're able to take tests on a laptop rather than using a felt pen and piece of paper that they did in 1919. So really happy to do that on behalf of the board today. Great hearing, good feedback, and I think that I think we'll be able to get that accomplished to help really streamline the process for our engineers.
All right, we've got a question from the folks in the chat, and this is somewhat business related as well and about streamlining. It comes to us from Fred Volts. He says, why do single employee businesses need to pay unemployment insurance to Dieter? The owner operator will not file an unemployment claim and increase the quarterly premium paid based on salary.
That's a very good question, Fred. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Um, if you are classified as an employee, everyone's required to pay unemployment insurance. I'm not a tax professional, so you might want to ask your accountant how there might be ways of avoiding some of that by doing distributions and some pass-through income. But again, not an accountant. I'd bug them, and but I can follow up and ask Dieter some of those questions and get back to you on that.
Yeah, that was a very interesting question. I wasn't quite sure what the answer was going to be either. I didn't know if you knew, but interesting. I could go ask the tax man next door and maybe get an answer for you here in a second.
Right. Go get Bob and ask him what it is. Hey,
Yeah, I'll have to.
real
We
quick while we have a second, Michelle, I want to give a shout out to our school board trustees. I know Chelsea had jumped on. Nathan Jett had tried to call in while we were on here. And there was a number of the school board trustees from across the state that were up here. Nathan Jett stopped by, had a great conversation, really let me feel like I was back at home. So it was great seeing him, great talking to Chelsea earlier via text, and really appreciate all that they do. So I just want to give them a huge shout out. We are working on the budget for the K through 12. Looks like we'll be getting a little bit of an increase on the per pupil funding, and the numbers obviously haven't been finalized yet. That won't happen until May. But things are moving positive and in the right direction. And so just want to say thank you to all of our school board trustees out there. Those that stopped by earlier today and those that are here online tonight, want to just say thank you.
absolutely. And Chelsea says she was sharing the broadcast on all of her channels. And then she just added, thank you for helping education, even though you aren't even on the education committee. How about that? And that's great because Leader Hafen does help with everything. So even if he's not on that committee, he's going to make a way. Joshua has a question. I actually think it's a very interesting one, and it's looking forward to 2026. Joshua asks, with the majority of elected officials being Democrat in Nevada, which is true, what races in 2026 are ones to watch and push for, in your opinion? I don't know if we've made a lot of those decisions just yet, but I'm sure you've got a few that you've got your eye on.
Why do I want to go and share my hand to the other side of what I'm looking at doing, Josh? Really good question. Obviously, the biggest race is going to be our governor's race. And so we are looking down ballot as well to see where we could be competitive. Um, and so there are things in motion. There are individuals that have approached me and says, "Hey, I really want to run for Assembly District such and such." I don't want to show my hand on exactly which races those are, but those conversations are being had, and obviously the biggest one for the state of Nevada will be the governor's office. And um, I know people aren't exactly happy with everything Governor Lombardo has done, except for I will say I think he's done an excellent job. You look at some of the things that he's helped this state and some of the things he's working on this session. Um, he's trying to do good things for the state of Nevada. And when you look at what appears to be his opponent, Attorney General Ford, and some of the things that he's proposing, I just think that that's the wrong direction for this state. And I am happy to work with Governor Lombardo. I have regular meetings with him and actually having breakfast with him next week at the mansion. Really looking forward to that. And normally we just in the office crunching the numbers and working everything out, but it'd be nice to be able to break bread with him next week. And so super proud, super excited, super honored to work with him. And that obviously will be the top of the ticket for the state of Nevada.
There are quite a few Nye County School Board members on with us right now, and they've got a lot of questions for you. And one is from Larry Small.
Hey,
And
Larry.
Larry says, question for security in our schools. With a federal grant that is expiring in June of this year, does the state have any information if they're going to pick up the tab or any type of information you can share with us, keeping the cops in the schools?
That's a great question, Larry. I need to go back and look at the K through 12 budget I know for higher education, we've actually put in some line items specifically for an increase in security. Normally, when it comes to the K through 12 budget, though, um, we don't normally line item budgetary items. I know last session we did when it came to teacher raises. That was a standalone bill. That was a one-time appropriation, which another bit of good news. The governor's recommended budget is to make those raises permanent, not make it just a one-time thing, but to keep those going forward. And so that is a large increase that will continue. I think last time it was $250 million, and that is included in his budget to continue going forward. As far as having the cops and the school police on campus, I'll have to dig in a little bit deeper, Larry. But um, my understanding is that it really is going to be a per pupil basis for the school trustees to then make the decision on how to spend those funds. I'm not aware of a line item specifically for security, but I'm happy to look into that further and see if there's anything that we can do. I know that I was having a conversation earlier about possibly a one-time appropriation for early literacy training. So I'm sure that there's going to be some of that stuff that comes up in May after the economic forum comes out. But I will dive into this for you, Larry, and see what I can find.
I think some of it too, as Chelsea's mentioning in the chat, is because the school security comes from a federal grant. There's concern that with so many cuts happening potentially in the Department of Education and with grants through everything that President Trump is doing, that this particular grant is one that could go away for funding. But again, we don't really know what's on the chopping block just yet. So it's kind of a wait and see situation.
Well, yes and no, Michelle. One of the things that we have been doing, and it puts long hours into the day, but we have been looking at worst case scenario. If the federal government decides to pause all funding to the states for 30 days, 60 days, what is it that the state will have to be able to do? Um, and what I can say is that the state of Nevada is in a great position. We have a balanced budget. We have a large rainy day fund and a lot of reserves. Even worst case scenario, the federal government pauses everything. We can do it. We can fund what we need to fund. We can get through that. Um, and frankly, I'm very happy to see the federal government finally making the decision that they want to be like Nevada and have a balanced budget. I've said that for years, decades actually now, because the last time they had a balanced budget was 2001. And so it's 2025. It's time for the federal government to have a balanced budget. But I will look into the specifics of the federal grants for the cops on campuses and see if there's any kind of line items there for us.
Absolutely. That's great. I know I want to, since we're talking about education, I'm going to get some of these education questions right now. We've got some great questions about domestic violence bills, though, that are in the chat. We definitely want to talk about that because this week we have quite a few. But our next question, if I can see if I can find it. Yes, it was, has Governor Lombardo amended anything with his proposed education bill yet? I'm not sure. Has he even dropped the full bill yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen his bill. I don't think it's out yet. So there wouldn't be an amendment to it yet. If you're referring to the policy side, if you're referring to the budget, there's been a couple of budget amendments when it comes to the education funding. I can tell you that the per pupil amount is going up. I don't have the exact dollar figures right here in front of me, but I was meeting with fiscal staff late last week to go over the actual numbers and where we were at. We actually had a budget hearing to go over that as well. But I don't think that the policy from the governor, I don't believe that bill has dropped yet. I was just trying to think of the floor. It wasn't on the floor agenda on the assembly side.
All right. Leah Dayanata has a question. She says, is there anything in the current session to keep domestic violence victims from being re-victimized by courts, law enforcement, and the abuser? We have quite a few domestic violence bills. Just to kind of refresh your memory, Gregory, Koenig and Hardy had the domestic violence bill that had the hearing on Monday. Toby has his bill AB 162 that is getting a hearing on Friday that would create a database of people who have been domestic violent offenders and have gone to prison, so that if you meet them on a dating website or somewhere in your life, you can look that up to see what their offenses were. Melissa Hardy also has a very interesting bill that's getting a hearing on either Thursday or Friday that actually would require law enforcement to do more risk assessments when they're on a domestic violence call in an effort to ensure that everyone is getting the care they need. She is also bringing a bill on Friday about the HOPE cards. And those HOPE cards are when you're a domestic violence victim and you have a protective order against someone. Rather than carrying those court documents with you, you can have a digital card or a printed card that you can show at any time, whether you're at a school, restaurant, wherever it may be, so that you can get care and help immediately if one of your offenders is there. But there's just a bevy of them, and I just wanted to remind you of all those just because I've been preparing the work on that and just wanted to bring that to your attention. I'll let you take it from there.
This is a great time to give a shout out to Michelle and thank her for all that she does. Uh, as you guys can tell, Michelle is knee deep into the policy that our members are working on, and we have some great bills, as Michelle said. The stuff that Melissa and Dr. Koenig are working on, the Hope Card. I had to ask them, like, well, what is the Hope Card? And they had to explain it to me. If you have a protective order against somebody right now, you have to carry the big, huge sheet of paper and carry it in a folder, where you'll be able to just replace it with just a small little card. And I don't know how they'll work out, but maybe they'll have a QR code on the back. So it'll really help streamline and reduce the paperwork that the individual victim would have to carry around with them. So I thought that was kind of a neat solution to a problem that I didn't know about. The Toby Urick's bill regarding the offenders and
Yeah.
the database. Anytime you say you're going to create a database, I'm just like, hold on, wait, what are we doing? And so, he talked to me about this, and he has worked extremely hard to ensure that there are precautions set into place to make sure that there's not, Michelle's name doesn't end up on there because she's not a criminal. But also, we live in a new world where people meet each other online, and they go out, and that's kind of how the world has progressed. And so there needs to be an ability to go on and see, hey, is this person a domestic violence offender? And I know that there are, websites that you can go to look up to see if a child predator lives next door to you. And so this will be another tool to ensure that some of the violence that we've seen recently in the news, where, an elderly man meets a younger lady online, and he thinks they're going out, but he ended up being murdered. And so very, very sad. You see a number of those in talking to law enforcement, where the individual becomes a victim of, they end up being robbed. And so it really is a good idea to put these in out there. And again, very similar to like the child sex offender stuff that's available out there for anybody to see. Hey, this person's a domestic violence individual. Maybe ask them about it before you go out with them.
That's an interesting side note about Toby's bill in particular, AB 162, which would create this domestic violence registry, if you will. It's named after a woman named Alessandria Barles, and she was dating a man in California who had previously assaulted his girlfriend and gone to prison for it. That girlfriend was a Nevada resident. And had she potentially known about this gentleman's violent past, maybe her life would not have been taken in 2015. So the bill is known as Alessandra's Law. And I do believe Alessandra's family is going to be there on Friday to help advocate for this bill. And then I just remembered as well that Hafen and Hardy and Codink's bill. I think it's AB 193. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that one. That is going to make police reports free for domestic violence victims, just as they are currently free for sexual assault victims. So just another way that domestic violence victims can get the help that they need. One of Melissa's bills is also looking at getting the hospitals what they need to do the strangulation tests and other things. So all I can say is there are just a bevy of bills addressing domestic violence this session. And I know I am going to be dropping a video tomorrow with Melissa Hardy talking about why she is so passionate about domestic violence and helping victims. So big shout out to Melissa Hardy and everything that she is doing for domestic violence victims. I'm going to ask Greg, are you still with us or have you frozen?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're just kind of, your picture's frozen. So you were there.
Okay, sorry. My battery was running low, so I was trying to plug it in. Hopefully I'm back now once my phone is charging. Never a dull moment.
No, we're not having the best connection day in Carson, and that's okay. That's okay. Let me ask you about this. I believe you had quite a few hearings this week on bills. AB 233 comes to mind, I think. And forgive me, I'm just the worst at remembering your bill numbers sometimes. Sometimes they get stuck in here and sometimes they don't. But you've had some hearings. Are there some of your personal bills that you'd like to share that you've been working so hard on that are getting hearings besides the election integrity one, which we talked about earlier in the broadcast?
Yeah, no, we had a bill presentation this morning on Assembly Bill 233, which was a bill that I put in. It's more of a cleanup bill for state police, highway patrol, try to give them some additional tools that we inadvertently eliminated from statute last time. Still needs to get some work done on it. There's still some back and forth. The DAs support it. The public defenders are like, I don't know, we want to work on it some more. And the judges also want to work on it, but the cops are all supportive of it. So we're still working on it. Still trying to get to the language where everybody is at least not opposed to it. But great hearing this morning. A lot of good testimony, and still have some work to do. I mentioned earlier Assembly Bill 270 that I also presented this afternoon, which will help the engineer profession cut some red tape and reduce some of the regulations. And I think last week I was able to talk about the hearing that I had on the interstate compact for counselors. Really had some great feedback. And before everything was said and done, by the time I went to the hearing, I had over 100 counselor professionals in the field sign in support of the interstate compact, which was great. There's 37 other states that are already in it. There's 5 states, including the state of Nevada, looking to join. The hearing went great, I believe, and I think that that's something that we're gonna get across the finish line. In addition to that, I've been presenting a couple of other bills on transparency and protecting your private confidential information. I was actually meeting with former Senator Washington about one of the bills that I co-presented, and really wants to get out there and help spread the message so we can get more and more support. We're pretty close. We need to do an amendment to that bill. But I think with the amendment, it'll help get us across the finish line. So a lot of stuff going on since we talked last week. A lot of bill hearings, a lot of budget hearings, a lot of late nights. I think most of my days I'm in the building by 7, and if I get home by 8, it's a good day. But that's why we're here. That's what we do, and that's what we do for you to serve the communities in the state that we love.
It's been a busy weekend. It's only Wednesday. I also want to give a shout out because in the chat on our main screen, we're talking with people on StreamYard, on YouTube, on Facebook, on a variety of Facebook channels. But we're also talking to people on Instagram. And Melissa Hardy is in the chat on Instagram. The CCRP is on the chat and Instagram. Ryan Fleming and a few others. So I just want to thank everyone who are joining us there as well. And we've got a question from Michael. Excuse me. Michael asks, he's watching on Facebook right now. I understand that the Nevada Department of Water Resources will be checking drawdown on ag wells. Will commercial wells for domestic water be checked on Basin 162?
Michael, I'm going to have to follow up with you on that. I don't sit on the subcommittee for natural resources. I strictly, well, I mainly deal with the budget and health and human services. I could follow up on you with the drawdown testing and what's going on. If you're referring to some of the I believe it was last legislative session or during the interim, we did allocate some ARPA funding for the Division of Water Resources to go out and do some of that testing so they could get a better handle on what the actual water supply in a number of basins is. If that's what you're referring to, I know they're trying to gather that data up to give a presentation to the Natural Resource Committee. But I definitely can reach out to the division and try to get some additional information on that, because I talked to them earlier today. So
There
happy
you
to
go.
follow up there.
There you go. Okay, I think you're going to like this one because Josh Baskin is back with us now and he is on Instagram and he just wanted to give you a little shout out that I know you're going to appreciate. He wants to know where you go to the barber shop because everything is on point, Greg.
Hey, Donna over at Champion Barbers, she always makes me look presentable, and then yells at me if I try to do it myself. So I made sure that this weekend I went to see her. She snuck me in. So Donna, if you're listening, thank you for sneaking me in to make sure that my beard is on point.
There you go. There you go. I know the beard needed some love because some people were giving a little hard time about the beard this week. So I thought I'd give the beard some love.
I.e. Michelle.
All right, Chelsea's got a question. I unfortunately do not know a lot about this, so I'm hoping you do. Speaking of state police, NALA's law, any news? I'm afraid I don't know what NALA's law is, so I apologize.
No update on that, Chelsea. I know I sent that over to somebody over at the governor's office. I can't remember now exactly who it was. Might have been Tim or Chase. I'll follow up and see if there's any movement there. I do know that the governor's bills are still to be in drafting form, and I know that you had sent that over to the governor's office to try to include in one of his bills, and so I'll check on that and see what the status of his bills are, and I'll also try to find out if the Democrats are even going to give him a hearing on any of his bills. Be kind of interesting to see how that goes this session too.
Yeah, that absolutely is true. I have hope they're going to give a hearing for some of his bills because I've been very pleasantly surprised to see how kind they've been to some of our freshman members of the caucus. I'm going to highlight Rebecca Edgeworth for a moment, if I can. She's one of our freshman assembly women, and she had an amazing hearing today on a hospice bill, which creates a hospice bill of rights. She also has a bill that's going to be heard on Monday that is going to work to eliminate Medicare and Medicaid fraud. And I wanted to bring that up because I know in our press conferences, you've gotten so many questions about Medicare and Medicaid. I know that you met with some lovely people in your office yesterday who are very dependent on Medicare and Medicaid. And you have had the opportunity to go back and forth with the White House on this one. And I don't want to steal your line, but we don't have anything to worry about here in Nevada, do we?
Well, you mentioned back and forth with the White House. Michelle's not joking. I think it was last Friday. I had 3 phone calls from the White House before lunch And they were like, "I'm sorry to keep bothering you, but everything keeps moving at such a fast pace. We wanted to give you an update." So what I am hearing is Medicaid's not going to be touched, and there won't be cuts that affect the state of Nevada. That was as of last week. Obviously, everything is still a moving target. It's um, obviously some of the individuals that I met with this last week are very reliant on Medicaid. Um, I had the honor of meeting some individuals with special needs. Met two girls today that participate in the Special Olympics. They ran track and field. I believe that one of them does the 100-meter dash, and just as you could see by the smile on my face, really was the highlight of my day today, to get to sit down and listen to them. And obviously, it's super important to them. One of the other individuals I got to meet, Caitlin was her name, and I got to meet her mom, Tracy, who used to work in Pahrump, and she's fully familiar with our justice system over there. She used to work for Judge Walker, and so had a great conversation. And Tracy, her mom, was very, very concerned with some of the things that are being promulgated in the news with the potential of Medicaid cuts and this and that. And I was able to reassure her that, look, everything I'm hearing is that's not happening. The president has come out and said numerous times that he is not cutting Medicaid funding for our citizens. And so I just reassured her, like, look, I understand the news and the media, they're trying to get ratings, and to me it's disappointing because it seems almost like fear mongering to me. um, Last night I did not get a chance to listen to the president speak, but I did see that every single one of the Democrats put out a statement, and the statement was word for word the exact same statement. You can watch it on repeat. And so you could tell that they have coordinated. It's very disappointing that they're not willing to work together and work across state lines to balance the budget for the federal government, and to be putting out misinformation like they are, scaring individuals like the special needs individuals that I met, is extremely disappointing to me. That's not what this country is about. And we really should be striving. The voters of this country have said, we want Donald Trump. We want to go in a different direction. We don't want, the Biden inflation. We don't want the issues at the border. And I'm going to give you a really good stat, and it's actually not a good one. It's a horrible stat to to put everything in perspective of what we have seen between 23 and 24. Fentanyl seizures at the Canadian border are up 2,000%, not 200%, 2,000%. And that's why it is so important that we say, you're our neighbor, you have to help us. Instead of you continuously charging tariffs and we give you free pass, you need to come to the table. You need to start negotiating and helping us with this problem, because it is killing American citizens and we will not take it any longer. And so, when the White House told me that that was the percentage of increase from the Canadian border, I was shocked. Um, that is unacceptable. And I am very proud of our president and Congress for finally stepping up and saying enough is enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Michael chimed in while you were talking, saying, good to hear Medicaid is not being cut. Someone needs to inform Ms. Cortez Masto. Thanks. It was interesting. I saw earlier today on Twitter, I was quite surprised by this. She recently put out a statement, I believe, after the joint session of Congress, that now she feels transgendered, that biological males should not be in sports if it would potentially hurt a woman. Victor Jakes was kind of tweeted out her response to that. So I will only mention that, and that I think we're in ever-changing times, and you will see some changes from our Nevada delegation here, hopefully very, very soon. Laura has a question. She just wants to know, what's the best way to get a hold of you? That's a great question. How should people get a hold of you, Greg?
Michelle's personal cell phone is, I'm just kidding. Um, No,
They're funny.
the best way to get a hold of me right now in session is to send me an email up here at my legislative email, which is really long and complicated. So I'll try to say it slowly. It is just Gregory.Hafen at asm dot state state dot nv dot us. That is the best way to get a hold of me while I'm up here. You can ask Michelle. She was just complaining earlier that she could not get a hold of me. The press was breathing down her throat for a statement from me. They gave her an hour timeline, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Michelle, I didn't get back to you. I was in a hearing and then back to back to back to back meetings. I didn't have a chance to breathe, let alone look at my phone to try to give you a statement. But I appreciate you going and reaching out to someone else to get a statement. So no, it is, and it might take me a couple days to get back to you. But huge shout out to Tracy, my attaché. She's magnificent. She helps me, my policy team, my chief of staff. Everybody is just absolutely excellent to work with here. Really helping us move things forward. But if you got something right now, shoot me an email. It might take me a couple days because we are very busy. But we'll try to help you where we can.
Awesome. And I put it in the chat. So it's on the screen right now. If any of you who are watching on StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, can't even remember where we're at all the time. And then the CCRP hooking us up, putting it on the screen as well. And in the chat on Instagram. It's hard to be on two computers, three different screens at the same time, but we're trying to make it happen for everybody. And then Julie has a lovely comment. She says both parties and social media are full of misinformation. It does create panic, and we appreciate you being available for the truth. 100%. And then Justin, if I can find it, Justin Bransky said, thank you for everything you are doing for us. Speaking of the truth, I happen to know, because I'm the one who helps put it out. The caucus had an email newsletter that went out today reminding everyone about this, but we had a special letter in there from the desk of Mr. Gregory Hafen himself, where he was explaining how he is going to constantly be your source of truth during this legislative session, telling you the truth about what's really going on with the budget, telling you the truth what's really going on with Medicare, telling you the truth what's going on with everything. And this is one of the ways that we help get the truth out there, making sure that people are informed. You know, we've had about 40 people on here on various platforms all night long. That's one of the ways we're doing it. So we do hope that you will share this with others and have others join us as well. Right, Greg?
Yeah, no, this is just one way that we're trying to make sure that you have the information and the actual information on what's going on. We also do a media slot once a week where various members of the media, and most of them have been pretty decent and not twisted my words. I say most, but it's so important for us to get the word out, get the message out of what's really going on up here. Because there is so much misinformation that gets put out, and things get twisted and turned to sell newspapers and turn headlines and make you click on this and that. To me, it's just so important to make sure that you get the information as fast as I can get it, or at least as fast as Michelle can push it out for us on all the different various platforms. And again, if you're up here, by the way, and you make it to Carson City, like Nathan Gent did, stop by my office, say hi to Tracy. Hopefully she can find, 5-10 minutes for me to say hi, and see a good friendly face. All are welcome. And if you all show up at the same time, maybe we'll have to go out front and talk, because we'll need more space. But just really appreciate all of you and all the support that you guys give me back home. And it is reassuring to hear the nice words and comments this evening, because it is a lot of work up here. And but it is an absolute honor as well.
You might get some candy if you're up there in his office too, because his office, Tracy's always got candy hiding in all sorts of little places. So
I'm sure if I open a door, there's probably a piece of dark chocolate. in every single drawer.
There you go. There you go. All right. I have noticed just in the past 20 minutes or so that we actually have a lot of future assembly candidates, if I can, joining us in the chat on Instagram and all of our social media platforms. So I thought that might be an opportune time to just ask, this session is 120 days, but on June 3rd, when the session is over, your job as minority leader is nowhere near over. Not only do you still have committee meetings that you will attend throughout the year, your focus will then be on getting more seats for the assembly. So maybe explain to those who don't understand that just when the session's done, your job's not over, and how things change really after July, because everyone needs a break after this session, right?
Yeah, hopefully we don't get called back into special session right afterwards, but that happens. I've been through a few. It never ends. We do get a breath for about a week or two right after session, but then it's right back to the grind, and it's between the interim committees, and I have to be careful here, Michelle, because I am in blackout period. So
Oh, okay. I'm
um,
sorry.
the it all ramps back up. We normally don't start the interim committees until about September, so we do get a couple of months off from there. We will have probably interim finance committee, which is the interim budget committee. It's jointly with the Senate. That probably will be before that, because anytime an agency wants to spend, I think it's more than $75,000. Even though they have the money in reserves, they still have to come back in front of us to appropriate the money, and so we get together. It's pretty much every single month to do that, and then our committees the same way. Health and Human Services, Revenue. We'll all meet once a month, and in the interim, and so it just becomes a once a week type of thing, as well as all the other things that everybody's mentioning that I probably can't touch too much on, just because I am in blackout right now, so I don't want to.
That's
I don't
okay.
want to cross that gray line.
I can switch gears. Larry's got a question. It's an interesting one. I do think it's a federal question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any talks about expanding Highway 95 in the future through Nye County? Are there?
So great question, Larry. Every time I get a chance to talk to anybody on the NDOT board, I bring that up because it is a huge, huge issue. As you're aware, US 95 is also the I-11 corridor. And so there's always the chicken and the egg conversation. And with the egg prices, I mean, heck, it might be cheaper to build a road than it is to buy eggs. But the it's constantly trying to talk about, hey, there's a formula that the NDOT uses to say, if there's this many accidents, then it justifies building the roads, and we have our schedule and yada yada yada. And I have to be careful because I do get some sensitive information, but the severity of the accidents on US 95, for those that have seen the photos, is just absolutely atrocious. And so I know we've been successful in getting a couple passing lanes put in, getting some signage put up to say, hey, passing lane in 1 mile. But we really need more of that. It is a very, very dangerous highway. So those of you that are listening that are driving that soon, please drive safe. Be safe on the road. There's a lot of truck traffic, and then with the truck traffic, you have individuals that speed and want to pass the truckers. Be patient, be safe. It is something that we are constantly talking about and trying to figure out. All right, when are the feds going to step up to the plate and actually build the I-11? And in the meantime, how much money can we shift over from our highway funds to put in passing lanes throughout? And again, it's the chicken and the egg scenario. To me, it's just we need to step up to the plate and get the job done. But we also have limited resources because we have a balanced budget.
Yes. And hopefully one day the federal government will too. Alex has a question about insurance rates. Car insurance rates are very high in the state of Nevada. He wants to know, is there any plan in the legislature to do something about that? Not
So
sure if
great,
there is.
great question, Alex. There's a couple of things that are being looked at right now to try to cut down on some of that. I don't know if there's any bill language out there yet. But one of the things that's been brought to my attention is I'm sure you see this, you'll see a lot of California and Oregon license plates. And these are individuals that Oregon doesn't have a sales tax. Their car registration's a lot less. California's car registration's a lot less, and therefore they're keeping their registration in California or Oregon when they move, and so their insurance premiums are going to those states and at those rates, which shrinks the pool of individuals in the state of Nevada that are contributing to the insurance pool, which raises our price. And so there are conversations about how do we crack down on these individuals that are not registering their vehicle in the state of Nevada, are not paying insurance rates, which then causes the rest of us that are paying insurance rates to have a higher premium. Um, and I see Laura's asking about home insurance. I will add that to my list to dig into as well. But Alex, that is one way that we are looking at that is trying to crack down on the individuals that are paying their insurance to Oregon, California, and elsewhere, and making and bringing them into Nevada because they are living here. And so that's one thing we're doing. On the homeowner side, I had a meeting earlier this week with one of the representatives. Very, very brief conversation. He's going to get back to me. Um, his concern is that there's a number of bills coming from the Democrat side that's actually going to do the opposite, and it's going to increase premiums. And so we're setting up a meeting for him to give me a much further in-depth brief of what's going on there. We just had a 5-10 minute time slot for him to give me the brief update, but hopefully by next week or the following, I'll have some more information on how some of that stuff is progressing and what it is that we can do, because it is a problem. I mean, we've seen inflation is really been bad over the last 4 years, and so um, insurance is no different. It's up pretty substantial, and so we're definitely working on it. Hopefully, I'll have some more of those details of where that stuff's coming in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. There's this topic has created quite a bit in the chat. Alex mentions that Edgar Flores had a bill in 2017 that raised car insurance rates. He was hoping that someone would be able to reverse that. We also say, as Savannah says, Nye County property taxes are a joke and need to be looked into. And she wrote cute, but I think quickly is what she meant to say there. So a lot of people asking about that. Chelsea had a question about Medicaid fraud, the bill for services not provided, and no one stops it. I just wanted to highlight that one very quickly if we could, because of course we've got the bill on Medicaid fraud on Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday, Dr. Rebecca Edgeworth will be presenting cracking down on Medicaid fraud, um, which is super important. I mean, we look at what the federal government's currently doing and cutting back on fraud, and the things that they're finding are some of them are very shocking. Um, I don't think that the state of Nevada has as shocking of Medicaid fraud, but there is Medicaid fraud out there. And I think, Chelsea, we saw some of it in the last couple of years there in Nye County, where there was a group that got their facility raided because they were committing Medicaid fraud. And so I'm hoping that with Rebecca's bill presentation on Monday, we'll be able to move that forward and crack down on more of that, because that obviously affects all of us. It keeps our Medicaid costs higher than they need to be. And in talking to Dr. Edgeworth earlier today about her bill, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that individuals are defrauding the state out of, and so we really need to step up to the plate and start cracking down on these individuals.
Absolutely. All right. As we are getting to the very end of our time, the hour is almost up. I am going to bring up two bills that I know you and I don't really see eye to eye on, but it is a controversial topic and a timely one because this Sunday is the day that everyone loses an hour of sleep. Yes, we are going to spring forward on Sunday at 2 a.m. to daylight savings time. You lose that hour every time we have daylight savings time or we fall back in November. People go, why do we do this? Why do we do this? Well, there's a bill in the Assembly. There's a bill by Dr. Titus in the Senate. Says, let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. Stay on standard time. And I did not believe there was such passionate beliefs on this one all over the place, but people are either all for this or dead set against it. Do you think either of these, and I'm not going to let anyone out us on where I'm on it and where you're on it. I'm going to ask a better question. Are these bills even getting hearings? Are we going to talk about it? Is everyone going to be grumpy on Monday and say, give them a hearing?
I love that idea. We should have the hearings on Monday when everybody is exhausted from losing that hour of sleep. I don't like the time change when we go back and forth and back and forth. There was a resolution that I supported previously that asked the federal government to leave us on daylight savings time. I obviously supported that last time and think that, we really should try to do that, to stay on daylight savings time. I know that there's the stay on standard time. We can argue back and forth which one is better way of going. And Michelle and I had that debate the other night. I think it was about 8:30 at night. As she was trying to leave and go home. But no, I think that it's long overdue that we need to do something. But we have to, my opinion, I like daylight savings time better. Michelle likes standard time better.
Well,
This
I like
is the
daylight
debate.
savings too, but LaRue Hatch was actually the one who said it. The federal government will not allow you to make that choice. So when individual states like Hawaii or Arizona made that choice, the federal government says, cool, you can do what you want, but you have to stay on standard, which was why the resolution last session that you did saying, no, let's do daylight savings was brilliant because I do like the later evenings in June when it's, sunny until 9. I love that.
No, yeah, and that's why we do the resolutions, because we need the authority from Congress to be able to stay on daylight savings time or have Congress just enact it across the nation. And I was talking to Assemblyman Gurr, who was on last week with us. You get out into some of the northern ranchers and ranches, and it's really important for the daylight savings time for them. And so that's where a lot of the passion to stay on daylight savings time for standard time comes. Don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was making some really good arguments there. And
No, he doesn't like it. You're right. He likes daylight savings. He does not like standard time, and he does not want to go back to that. We got in a little tiff about it on Tuesday, so I know. He and I talk about it all the time. I don't know why we do, but we do.
It's a good one, and I'm sure we'll be complaining about it on Monday. Make sure everyone drop a comment. Michelle will be doing a post. I'm sure she'll make something funny for us, and we'll all get a good chuckle out of it on Monday.
There you go.
Probably not too good because we'll all probably be exhausted.
It's the worst day of the year. All right. As we're getting ready to close, Savannah on Facebook says, hey, how often do you do these town hall meetings?
Well, Savannah, we do them every single week. There's 2 exceptions that we won't be doing them. Michelle, help me. March 19th, we're not doing one.
March 19th, we're not doing it. And I think it's April 23rd. April 23rd, we're not doing it. But otherwise, we should be doing them throughout the end of the session. I think the exceptions would be, June 3rd is the last day of the session. You're not doing it that day because you will be.
Yeah, we won't. I won't be able to do any of this because I'll either be in the budget hearings or on the floor voting. The last week or two gets extremely busy, and so those last 2 weeks, you might not get me, but we'll make sure to try to get somebody on here for you to give you some updates, to let you know what's going on.
You'll get someone better than me, that's for sure. So you won't have to just be endured with me. We'll get someone important on. But we don't know about at the very end, but we're planning on doing this weekly. So we hope that you will join us next week. And we hope that you will share this with your friends and neighbors. And just so you know, when you sign up to be registered for these town hall meetings, if you do happen to miss it, you will get an email the very next day with the downloaded broadcast. So you can still watch it and take part. Did you even know that, Greg?
You told me that earlier today, and I was
There
like,
you
oh,
go.
we send out the copy to everyone. Cool.
There you go. All right.
And you can always watch it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can't go back and watch, only live on Instagram, but everywhere else you can watch all of the feedback. So really cool. Awesome for Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Greatly appreciate the questions, the input. Looks like I've got a little bit of homework here to do as I took some notes of some things to follow up for you on for next week. Hope everybody has a wonderful Ash Wednesday and enjoys the rest of their evening and has a wonderful weekend.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.